New Level Cap Podcast is a show about fun, friends, game design, and all things otherwise. Your hosts are Marco DeSantos and Brad Telton of Level 99 Games. I'm Chris Solis, your producer, and without further ado, please enjoy the show.
So you see, I really feel like I'm the only host on this cast. Welcome to the New Level Cap Podcast. I know that I can't sing, everyone, but I want to welcome all of you to this episode of the New Level Cap Podcast. As usual, it's been me, your host, Marco DeSantos, also known as Mechanic Critic, and with me is no one because everyone is either at Gen Con or at EVO. So I decided to take this very special episode to ask all of you to ask me some questions about myself, Level 99 Games, or all things otherwise. Do note that many of the opinions that will be expressed on this podcast aren't necessarily going to be the opinions of Level 99 Games as an entire company. Usually I have Brad with me to kind of keep me in check, but if you hear me start making jokes about fake seasons of Exceed or, start making jokes about Naruto Exceed, do take everything with a kind of a grain of salt, because, if I say on the podcast that the next season of Exceed is Teletubbies, please assume that it is a joke, because people might, pretend or misunderstand the fact that I'm joking. So I want to make it very clear. Whatever you hear on this podcast won't always be gospel truth, and sometimes I may be misinformed or sometimes I don't know what I'm talking about. But I will attempt and will do my best to provide all of you great answers to all of your hard-pressed questions. So for those who didn't know, I actually sent out a link at the comment section of every podcast, and I asked all of you to ask me some questions. So without much else to say, let's start off with question number 1 from GoBoxel. GoBoxel asks, will Exceed have an online equivalent of BattleCon Online? If so, which seasons would be there? So this is a very interesting question, and one I often get, especially with people who are really, really excited for Exceed. And again, there's nothing wrong about being excited for Exceed and what crazy things we could do with it. So here's the big deal. Exceed is known to be the license game, so a lot of the seasons and characters in Exceed are from other intellectual properties, like Street Fighter, Red Horizon, and the new season, which is... I'm not going to tell you guys on this podcast, sorry. Maybe when Brad's back, I'll reveal what the new season is, but for now, all of these characters tend to be from intellectual properties that Level 99 Games doesn't own. And for people who have not listened to any of our podcasts about licensing and all of that stuff, it's really actually hard to get licenses to these things, and it's even harder to get them for video games. So the licenses for the board games are not 1:1 compatible with licenses for video games. So just because we have Street Fighter as a board game license doesn't mean that we instantly have them as a video game license. And the amount of money and the amount of resources you have to invest into that is really, really big. So it has to be worth the juice has to be worth the squeeze, so to speak. So I'm not sure Level 99 Games is going to make an Exceed online. Again, Brad or other people in the company might have different ideas and might have a different view on this, but that's based on what I know. And if it would happen, which seasons would be there. So if we are going to make Exceed online, it's basically just going to be characters that we own, right? That's the only conceivable way that I see it happening. So it would be just 7th Cross, maybe some Esper X characters, and maybe whatever other games we have. Maybe BattleCon characters can come in there or something like that. So it would have to basically be characters that we own. And I think that kind of loses out a little bit on Exceed's appeal, right? The appeal of Exceed is having characters from all of these other IPs that in this game. It's kind of like Smash Brothers, right? If Smash Brothers was just all Nintendo characters, it wouldn't be anywhere as cool. So I think that's kind of like the problem, and that's my response to whether or not Exceed Online will happen. I'm not saying it won't, I'm just saying that based on what I know, it's not quite so likely. Alright, let's move on to the next question from Bitcoins. Bitcoins asks, when are we going to get a Marko original game? So this is kind of partly my fault. Brad has told me many times that I should probably pitch something at some point. And it's very true. I've been working on a game that I've been meaning to pitch. I'm not sure if I should tell everyone, but the entire point of it is that I am really, and I mean really, into shonen sports anime, and that is a game that we have not made for level 99 games yet. So I'm very desperately working on a shonen sports anime kind of game. The sport could be entirely fictional. So if you're looking for some sort of my inspirations, I guess you could look at Chaos Ball by Eric Lang, I think. That was a really fun game, but I felt like it was a bit too minis focused and a bit too... let's just say there were too many moving pieces on the board, so I kind of wanted to create a fictional sport that kind of looks more like, oh shucks, if you've ever watched the Avatar Korra series, there's like a element bending contest where like there's like a firebender, a waterbender, and a earthbender on a team, and they kind of play this fictional sport that's like dodgeball or whatever. I kind of want to do something like that where like it's set in either Indies or some sort of other universe in level 99 games where they play this fictional sport and they all have like absurd anime powers. If it's level 99 game stuff, you can always assume that like, you know, there's like a Hikaru character who can shoot fireballs and stuff like that. I'm very interested in making a game like that. And I really, really want... I just really want a sports anime game, okay? A sports anime game that captures the absurd anime powers that characters can have and, you know, and actually sell that. Because I think the big problem I have with a lot of sports games that they try to be, like, they're like, hey, it's just football, but we're in a fantasy setting, you know? And I really want to sell, like, how completely superhumanly absurd some of the powers can be. And I really want that. Chaos Ball, I feel like, scratches on that a little bit. Especially with some of the MVP players. I know one like I know one of them is like a two-headed person so that they can tackle two people at the same time. Like stuff like that. That'd be really cool. I want to kind of do a game like that. So yeah, there you go. If you want a Marko original game, it's not coming yet. I want to make something like that. It's definitely true. And you know what do you guys think? What do you guys think I should make? Obviously this is like, would you be interested in sports anime, shonen anime, the sports game? Because I would gladly make it. Yeah, who knows? I'd be really interested in doing something like that. Great question. So we've moved into the realm of meme questions. Well, not all of the questions from this point on will be memes, but Canon asks, what even is otherwise? This is a very philosophical quandary that you've given me to, but I guess otherwise would be the other, that which is not, that which you do not know, that which is not represented within the first statement. So level 99 games things and all things otherwise. Otherwise is simply anything outside level 99 games because otherwise consumes us all. Otherwise is the shadow in the dark. Otherwise is brighter than the light. And otherwise is the space within nothingness. There you go. Okay, from this point on, a lot of the questions are going to be anonymous. So on the forum, I actually ask whether or not you want me to shout out your name on the podcast. So a lot of these questions have been left blank, so I'm going to say they've been asked by Anonymous. Anonymous asks, hi, are the changes to characters in BCO going to be used in the reprinting of BattleCon? This is a very interesting question, and is actually very multi-layered. The answer is yes, but also no? See, the thing about it is that BattleCon Online and BattleCon are actually two very different kinds of games. How is this the case if both of them are just the same game system? Well, really, if you've ever played a game like Magic, for example, Magic Online is a significantly different game from Magic the Gathering regular, like in real life with the cards. It's not just because, one is physical and one is digital. It's also because the amount of things that are available in the game are just different, right? In Magic the Gathering, for example, you have like years or decades worth of cards that aren't in Magic Online. And for BattleCon, the simplest fact is that a lot of the characters in BattleCon aren't even in BattleCon Online. What does this mean? This means that what's perfectly okay and good for a character in BattleCon Online might not be okay to have in BattleCon Print, and vice versa. So this is a very interesting question to answer because a lot of the changes made in BattleCon Online are balance changes that actually are good for the character on paper. So things like, the changes to Karen, for example, the changes to Alexian, like basically all the changes to the BCO characters, you can basically expect most of those to translate into BattleCon paper. Where the answers diverge, however, and why it's a no is because don't expect that for a character to be translated 1:1, right? If a character looks a certain way in BCO, don't expect them to look exactly like that when we get to BattleCon paper. So a lot of things are going to be very different. For example, Alexian, if you've been watching any of our previous Devastation streams, Alexian has a lot of his effects changed, right? Because he has a lot of scalar effects that go like, advance one space and then power for each space, blah, 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 or soak for each space, blah, blah, blah. Alexian kind of has streamlined a lot of those effects. So, for example, his stalwart no longer scales in damage. It just says, you know what? If you advance 2 spaces, just get all the power, right? So things like that, they are very interesting, and they are changes made to paper to make paper BattleCon simpler and easier to parse. But since BattleCon Online is a very different environment and has a quote-unquote tighter set of balance between the characters because there's less characters to balance, you might not necessarily see those changes be applied to the BattleCon Online versions. So it's going to be very interesting, and a lot of people are going to be disappointed to hear that BattleCon Online is not a 1:1 adaptation of the paper experience, but it has never been this case because a lot of the characters in BattleCon Online are as good as people perceive them to be simply because the cast of characters in BattleCon Online are nowhere near as diverse as the cast of characters available in BattleCon Print. A lot of people think Schecter is really, really good in BattleCon Online. This is not the case. A lot of people think Marmolly is really, really good in BattleCon Online. And you know what? In PaperCon, these characters aren't even in the top 10 list, right? Tannis isn't there, Sagas isn't there. All of the characters, specifically the heavy control characters, aren't in BattleCon Online, which kind of warps the way the meta in BattleCon Online works, favoring characters who can do unbeatable attacks like Schecter, who's like, I will go deal a lot of damage at speed 9 and you can't really do anything about it. Yes, this is something that Schecter can do in BattleCon Online, but when you get to BattleCon paper, a lot of characters just go, alright, good job, you miss now. Or, alright, good job, that speed is actually mine now. So these are things that not a lot of characters in BattleCon Online can do that a lot of BattleCon characters in BattleCon paper can do. So yes and no, that is my final answer. Okay, next question from Anonymous is, what should I watch on Netflix once I finish with One Punch Man? This is a very interesting question. Not related to Level 99 Games, but I did say Level 99 Games things or otherwise. So before we head into the break, I really think that Netflix doesn't have a lot of the shows that I like. If I were to recommend any show on Netflix that is an anime that is kind of close to One Punch Man, you should just watch Mob Psycho 100, which is from the creator of One Punch Man. Has a really nice animation style, and if you really like the humor in One Punch Man, then Mob Psycho 100 is going to be the show for you because it shares a lot of the same trappings, but instead of superheroes, it's about psychics. Alright, so without much else to say, let's move on over to the break, and cut!
Want a game with other Level 99 Games fans, such as yourself? Join the official Discord channel. You can find the invitation link in the description below.
Whoop! And we're back from the break. That was a sound effect that I totally did not just make with my mouth. I bought that on the sound library. Yes. So welcome back to Marco's Mailbag Hour, where I talk to you about all of your hard-pressed questions that you asked me because you want to know more about me, Level 99 Games, or otherwise. I asked you not to ask me about my left foot's name, and it seems like none of you did, so thank you very much. Anonymous asks, what time is it for you right now? As I'm recording this, it is around 1 p.m. in the afternoon. For people who don't know, I actually live in Asia, which is around a good half day ahead of most of the people in America. So when it's like 7 p.m. for you, it's like 7 a.m. for me, which is why you get to see me online all the time, because we're like, it's like evening-ish for most of the Americans, and it's around morning-ish for me. So my shift kind of starts as everybody's shifts end. So when all of you are, free to talk about games and have fun, I'm online to help you talk about games and have fun. But this also means that people are sometimes concerned with my sleeping schedule, because they're like, it's 3 a.m. How is Marco still awake? That's simply because it's 3 p.m. for me at that time, and it's nowhere near my bedtime yet. So don't worry about it. I'm not overstaying up. I'm not having a lack of sleep. I am not staying up past 12 midnight constantly playing board games. I promise. I'm just in a different time zone. So don't worry about that. It's fine. Anonymous asks, when will Level 99 Games announce the next season of Exceed? This is really spicy. I can't really announce it right now, and I can't really tell you when it's gonna happen. Announcing something like this, especially when it's in partnership with another person, or, when it comes to marketing and announcements, all things have to be made and make sure all the parties involved are, okay with all of the collaterals we're making and all of this stuff. So the answer is when it's ready. But yeah, I'm really excited. We're probably going to do an entire reveal stream. At least I hope to make a reveal stream. I also hope to announce it on this podcast, so don't fret about that. If you are on this podcast, you will get that news and information, no doubt. And I also want to do a trailer for YouTube, and it'll be awesome. Oh my gosh. I'm really excited about this new season. I can't keep hyping it up from all of you. I've been dropping so many hints, but let's just say that you're all going to dig this new season, and it's going to be really, really awesome. Okay, next question. Anonymous asks, how do I avoid getting killed by Penumbral, Quake, Fulminating, Quickening, Expulsion, Switch, plus Caster? This is a joke question, I assume, because they could just say Caster instead of listing down all the possible style combinations. So for people who don't know, Caster is the unique base for Kimbe, a character in BattleCon, and essentially Caster's effective stat line is the range is wherever the staff marker is, the power is 5, the speed is irrelevant, it's slow, it just has stun immunity. And then you can move the staff to any space start of beat. So this might seem like, oh wait, then it just hits everywhere on the board. This is not necessarily true, because the start of beat movement happens before all other triggered movements. So that means that if they put it on you and you just drive or perform a slower start of beat effect, which is a tall ask, but not necessarily impossible, you can easily get off the marker after they put it on you. So Caster is a really strong card. There's just no doubt about that. It's really, really, really good. And a lot of people are looking at we're listing down all of Kimbe styles here because really at the end of the day, they're really good with almost all of them. I don't think there's a single bad caster pair in all of that. It works really great with Penumbral because even if Penumbral gives the opponent Soak 2, Penumbral itself has Power +2, which just cancels it out. So Penumbral caster will always deal 5 damage and it's relatively safe. And if the opponent does perform an attack that will make you miss, you can use caster to put the staff on yourself and give yourself Soak. Quake is really good, because it's Quake. Quake caster is really slow, and it's also nigh undodgeable because the start of beat effect will always go slower than the opponent, so the opponent's start of beat dodge will move them, then you can put the caster on them. So if they drop drive, they're eating a Quake caster for 7 or 8 damage. It's really, really powerful. Fulminating is almost the same as Quickening. Both of these kind of just are fast versions of caster, so if the opponent's playing a slow shot or a slow strike, you can possibly whack them out of it. One big thing that Fulminating has over Quickening is that Fulminating allows you to move the staff one space, which means that even if your opponent does a drive or something, you can still hit them with a Fulminating caster by putting it in the space in front of them, so that if they drive one space, they're on it, and then if they drive another space, you can just move the staff onto them again. It's a really, really powerful attack pair, and it's no joke. Absolutely no joke. Really, really good. I really, really like this attack pair. Let's see, what else? I mean, Expulsion's obvious, right? Simply put, you can use the start of beat on Expulsion to pull the person towards the staff, possibly making them miss, possibly making it so that they are in worse positioning, and all of these things. So I've hyped up Caster long enough. How do you beat it? How do you not die to Caster? Here is the unfortunate truth of the situation. You cannot avoid Caster. Caster is a really hard attack to avoid, especially if you're a character with not a lot of mobility options. If you don't have a lot of before or slow start of beat movement, or after activating movement, Caster's gonna hit you. And it's gonna be really rough, and it's really matchup dependent. So if you're a character like Karen or Schecter, or any of these characters with relatively fast attacks and, before activating, after activating movement, you're kinda okay, right? You don't have to worry about Caster so much, because you can just use your before activating movement to get out of the staff marker's space. So you're relatively safe there. Now, the real problem comes when you're playing characters who don't have stuff like that. What about characters like Kadath, for example? Well, the answer to that is even simpler. Control characters tend to have ways to dodge attacks. So if you're Seraphina, if you're Kadath, you can just use your dodge clauses to, prevent the opponent from hitting you. And, you can just teleport out of the way or do all of these crazy jank to just move and stuff. I mean, Seraphina has a lot of movement outside of her teleport. She has Silver. Silver's pretty good, so that's still a way out of it. So the real problem is actually when you're using a Juggernaut and you're fighting against a Kimbe. This is the big problem because oftentimes Juggernauts, or Heavies, as BattleCon Online calls them, don't have a way of easily just moving off a marker because they're either really slow or they don't have movement. So how do you deal with it this way? Well, the real answer is to just trade with Kimbe. Being a Juggernaut means that you usually have a lot of defenses, and even if Kimbe can whack for a lot of damage, she can never whack usually for more than 7. So if you have Stun Guard 6 and you just anti-Stun Guard force on top, you will usually be safe from being stunned by Kimbe's attack, and you can easily retaliate back. And depending on which character you are, 7 damage isn't even going to be as much as the damage that you deal. If you're Cadenza, play Press. If you're Alexian, you can just Stalwart Divider that thing. If you're playing Caesar, you can... Caesar might be rough, but you can still trade with it, like 7 damage against 7 damage on the correct turn. This is basically how you deal with it, is that you just have to trade with Kimbe so that Kimbe is low enough that she doesn't feel safe to play Caster. Caster's biggest weakness is the fact that it's slow, which means that no matter who you are, you're oftentimes going to be able to hit Kimbe before she gets to hit you with Caster. Make it so that she's low on life enough that if she dares Caster, she will instantly die. This has been the biggest form of counterplay I've had for Caster, and it's usually the way that you beat Caster. If you make Kimbe scared enough to take the damage from Caster, that's usually more than enough. However, if you are in a situation wherein Kimbe has a lot of life, and you don't have enough life to tank the Caster, and she's in the perfect positioning so that you can't dodge her Caster, I think you've already lost many beats prior to that. Just saying. Okay, and Twilight. The last question is from Twilight. Twilight asks, what are the results of the Indians Cup and Gen Con tournaments? Can we expect more tournaments in the future? Great question. And my answer is no. No, just kidding. For people who don't know, let me give some background on this, right? Indians Cup is a really cool tournament that we did for BattleCon Online, where we took some of the top ranked players in BattleCon Online, put them all in a bracket, and had them fight it out to the pedal to the metal. I don't know. And the big deal about this is that it's actually one of our first official BattleCon Online tournaments held and organized by Level 99 Games ourselves, I guess, since I work for them. So that's really cool, right? The results have been posted. So the third place goes to LP Finale. Second place goes to Moon Knight, also known as Charles. And first place goes to Mix. So congratulations to these 3 winners. We're really glad that you were all able to play, and we've given them their appropriate prizes. So hopefully they've all gotten that and all really good. I'm really happy with how this tournament worked out. Indians Cup was a little bit late. Let me be real, because of scheduling differences, but we were able to get all the finals done within the week that I wanted them to be done. I wanted them to be done by the end of August 1, but we finished around August 2, 3 instead. That's more than good enough for me. I was expecting it to go this far. I'm really happy with how the tournament ended up, happy with the format, I'm happy with the players, and I would not be opposed to doing more tournaments. And this time, now that I'm sure that the tournament structure and everything is fine, I might do more coverage. So the thing about this tournament is that there was not a lot of coverage, right? We didn't stream any of the videos. We didn't do a lot of video content for it afterwards. And the fan community has been really good on picking up the slack there because Kevin, also known as Twilight, has actually created a series where they review some of the videos. So if you want to see how the finals between Moon Knight and Mix ended up being, Twilight actually did an entire video called the Replay Review where he had both Charles and Mix commenting on the game and commenting about what they were thinking about during the turn. So if you want to see what the mind of a pro is like, do watch those videos. I think I'll link them in the description down below if you want to see them. As for Gen Con, I can't really give you the results. I actually don't know what the full bracket for Gen Con was like. Mostly because, well, everybody's still at Gen Con, so nobody's told me anything yet. But can we expect more tournaments in the future? I would love to do more tournaments, more official sanctioned tournaments online or stuff like that. I feel like it's a really cool way to engage the community, and if I can find some way to create content from it, like, replay reviews or maybe even live commentary, I would love to do that, and it would be really, really cool. Hopefully, if I can just convince everyone that it's a good idea, because it is a lot of time and it is a lot of effort to do something like that. So, yeah, that's just how it breaks. So I'm not opposed to doing more tournaments. We'll have to see. I'll try to convince people about it, but no promises from me. I personally would not be opposed to more tournaments because they're pretty fun and they're pretty cool. Okay, and that pretty much does it for this episode of the Mailbag. I would love to answer more questions, but I'm on a limited time, and I don't want to run through all of the questions in existence. And besides, I think some of them are asking me about my left foot's name, and I don't want to give people my left foot's name. So, without much else to say, thank you so much for listening to this episode of the New Level Cap podcast. I hope you enjoyed this episode, even though I'm alone and I don't have Brad with me and all of this stuff. Hopefully I answered some of your questions, and hopefully I entertained you on the way. So, as usual, that's been me, your host, Marco DeSantos, also known as Mechanic Rick, and with me has been no one. This has been the New Level Cap podcast, and I want to say, don't forget your Switch style, and thank you, World of Indians. Thank you, and good night. Happy gaming.
The New Level Cap podcast is produced by Level 99 Games. Join us next Wednesday for more design talk and shenanigans. Thank you for listening.